3-meter synchro for women coming up. And then come the introduction of the pairs.
Please welcome Jasmine Lee and Kamlin Carr.
Lee and Kam will be the Malaysian pair to go first.
Team Australia.
Australia will be represented by Esther Chin, Sophie Mills,
China, Wu Chongqing and Yu Lin.
Wu and Q for China.
Ladies and gentlemen from Great Britain, Grace Reed, Catherine Torres.
Grace Reed and Catherine Torres will be for GB.
And Dan Ashley.
And Hong and Tang. And then the Dutch pair at the end. And a big smile on Freitag's face because she picked up a bronze yesterday in the individual. And Abel and Ware, very established pair. Jennifer Abel didn't have a great day yesterday. And Subshinsky and the partner will be last to go for Germany. So already today we've had the men's 10-meter synchro, which is won by Canada with China in second and Cuba in third. Just lay down some of the markers and kind of ground rules with the 3-meter synchro. 5 rounds for the women as opposed to 6 for the men. First 2 rounds, as with the men, will be the compulsories. And the divers can choose what they do and how they do them. 2.0 degree of difficulty on both. And then we get into the higher tariff dives from round 3 onwards. So there will be synchronized judges and execution judges looking for completely different things. As the title suggests, synchronized judges looking for the synchronicity in the dive. Not so much how they go into the water, but whether they do the dive together. And the execution judge looks for the different nuances in the dive and how they enter the water, etc. So 5 rounds. And Chinese, pretty much as they were going into the 10-meter for men, will start as the favourites, but this is not necessarily, in all cases, the top Chinese pair that is representing their country in Canada. Grand Prix events tend to be second tier to the World Series. The World Series will be resuming later this month and will be in Europe again in London at the beginning of May the 1st, 2nd and 3rd for that. So Ian Kam, followed by Chin and Mills for Australia, the Chinese pair of Wu and Q in third, and Subchinsky and Punsa will go last for Germany. Women's 3-meter synchro, I want to say that it doesn't really get going till round 3 because these are the rudimentary dives for the pairings to come. There can be a differential of 10 to 20 points on these, but the higher tariff dives is where the divers get separated out. Well, that wasn't quite as good as they would have liked. That was a fairly, well, as all these are, relatively straightforward dive. Did they take off at the same time? Not quite. A little separation on entry as well. And body shape going through the air looked different from both. all of those things were itemised, and judges will look at that. 43.8 for the Malaysian pair to start off with. That's not brilliant. Just, if you weren't with us earlier, I always think of the marker for the men certainly being 50, for the women perhaps being upper 40s, but 50 is a kind of target point for all of these divers on the 2.0s. Chin and Mills, inward dive for the Australians to start. That's pretty much how to do it. Up and down, no frills, no fancy, no real kinks, no real alarms. And that will put the Australian pair into an early lead. Should be around the 50s for that. Couldn't see much wrong with that. Nice vertical entry on both. Took off at the same time. Decent height from both. And went through the water with a minimum of splash. 50? Give us a 50. 52. There you go. 52.80. Nice and consistent right across the board. Coaches won't have too much to analyse on that. Nice solid start for the Australians. On to the Chinese pair of Wu and Q. Forward dive for them. Good on the entry, good after the takeoff. The takeoff was not 100%, but it won't really matter too much on this dive. Let's have a look. Let's go from slightly different positions, to be honest, but that'll be okay. That'll be fine. Kind of caught up a partner there. They were in sync when they left the board, and in sync when they entered the diving pit, so that's kind of two bits that really matter. Pretty nines for them here, I'd imagine. Yeah, exactly the same mark as the Australians, 52.80. On to the British combination of Reid and Torrance. Inward dive for the Brits. Steady start for the British pair. .48 will be okay, so they'd like 50 plus if they could, but not to be on that one just yet. Fong and Tan up next with the reverse dive 2.0. Well, not a lot of height, I think it's safe to say. Didn't really use the optimum from that board in terms of getting airborne, and that could slightly count against them. Also, the entry on the far side not the best. 45 for Fong and Tan. On to the Dutch. Freitag and Janssen. Yeah, it's all right. Dutch diving is starting to emerge with the likes of Freitag. With that bronze medal yesterday, that's a big move forward for them. And yeah, the entries were okay, bit of splash from Freitag, not a lot, but enough. And synchronicity was very good all the way down, so that'll work to their benefit. It's only 2.0, of course, so not a lot of marks to be had here. How close do they get to that 50? 46, 47, 45, 45.60. It's Canadian support time. And it's a very established pair now of Jennifer Abel and Pam Ware. Inward dive to start for them, and however they do, they're going to get a big cheer, because they always do. Just to get Jennifer there. I think she might have had some back problems. Pretty much every diver does. So look at the way that she enters the water there. Just I'm going to bring that back into line. It'll do. It's okay. It's 2.0, so just get these ones out of the way and think about the big ones later on. Legs just slightly going over, but only marginally. 50.40. It's alright. Solid. Something to build on for a little later. German pair of Subshinsky and Punzer. Inward dive for them to round off round one. Closest to us. Legs. Ooh, she pulled it back. Did well there. Let's have a look at the replay to make absolutely certain, but get those legs pretty much vertical on the entry. That'll be again probably mid-40s. 48.6 for Subshinsky and Punzer. First of the two rounds of the compulsories before we get into the selections and joint leaders after the first round. The Australians and the Chinese, then the Canadians, and aside from the Malaysians, nobody really too far off the pace. They're not really either at this stage. But they know that they need better than 43.8 on their reverse dive, round two. They need to be pushing up towards the 50s to keep in touch with everybody else. Yeah, slight misplacing of the entry for the diver on the far side, but it's okay. Might be sorely tested when it comes to the more complicated dives, but that will be mid-range marks for the Malaysians. Maybe slightly higher than that to get into real competition. 48. Improvement on the first. Not up in the 50s yet. Around about 7 and 7.5 for the most part. Next time around they'll have to up the ante a bit when we get into the 3.0 dives. They might actually go for 2.8, 2.9s, the Malaysians, when it gets to round 3 and 4 and 5. And the Australians, joint leaders after the first. Again, up and down. Was Esther having a little problem with that board in the bounce, or her teammate was, rather? Let's have a look. That's okay. Because they can alter and do alter the tension on those boards to suit them. You'll probably not see because we'll be watching the replay when the other divers come up, but they get that wheel at the back does alter the tension on the diving board for less flexibility or more, depending on what you like. 51. So again, anything over 50 on the compulsories is good going. 51 to add to a 52.8 means they're right up there. Wu and Q with a reverse dive. Joint leaders with Australia after the first. Nice, very nice indeed. This is the kind of dive they do, not quite in their sleep, but you know what I mean. The kind of dive that they will do without blinking an eyelid, really. And this will probably put them just in front of the Australians. There are a lot of nerfs coming through from the announcers. That means we're going to get some 9s. Of course, the top and bottom marks are discarded. Looks good sideways on, looks good front ways on. Coach, I think, relatively happy with that. 52.80. And they've matched what they did in the first round to take the lead. Reed and Torrance, forward dive for the Brits. Better than the first dive. Grace competing at the 2014 Commonwealth Games, finished 5th in the 3-metre springboard individual last year. That should up around the 50, hopefully, from their point of view. About synchronised in the end. And 48.0 should be followed by nearer 50. See how mean the judges are going to be today. Same again. 48 for Reed and Torrance. So they are consistent. On to Fong and Tan. Slight variation here. Back 1.5 somersaults with half a twist. Still, even with that added complication, still only worth 2.0. Interesting intro, isn't it? No 1, 2, 3, just ready, go. And off they do go. and weren't quite in unison as they went through that routine. Slightly out on the synchro, but okay. Landing not exactly vertical. 43.20, and it means they're going to be falling away a little bit from the rest of the pack at this stage. Freitag and Janssen, back dive for them. 2.0, very impressive Freitag yesterday in the individual event. She's on the right. Yeah, I think that's probably where they're at the moment. Not spectacular. Not particularly eye-catching. But all the component parts there were happening at the right time, in the right order. And the entry was good enough. Not high marks, but okay marks. 49.2, so it's better than they performed the first time round. Up around that 50 mark, which is, I think, is always the litmus test for how you're going. If you're 50 on the 2.0s, then you're there or thereabouts. Canada expects a lot of a bell and wear. And here they come. Reverse dive for Jennifer on the right and Pam nearest us. Difficult to tell. Well, Pam's got a little injury here or not, because she's not quite as supple off that board as we normally see her. But being the competitor that she is, if she is feeling anything, she'll try not to show it. She'll try and carry on. Decent takeoff. In fact, slightly higher than her partner off the board. 49.8 for Jennifer and Pam. Less than 50, so that means they could probably move back a little bit now. China and Australia setting the pace. That third place definitely up for grabs though. At the moment, only 2 diving pairs, actually 3 have gone over 100. Germans last up. Yeah, 2.0s, I say not a great deal to go wrong. It's all a question of little minute things that can be seized upon and picked up by the judges. Now you'll get an idea whether they take off at the right time. Same position on the board. Not massively out. And they enter the water at pretty much the same time. There's not a massive amount of splash coming out. They've done their job. Vertical entry from both pretty much. Be careful you don't step off the side of the board. That's the other great worry. But that'll be alright. 48. A couple of 48s for them. 48.6 and 48 for the Germans. So in 4th place after round 2. So that's kind of the jousting out the way. China, Australia, Canada, Germany, Great Britain and Holland. Your top 6. And the 2 who don't appear on that first page are the Malaysians and Fong and Tan in last place. This is where the competition really starts. We'll get up to the 3s and beyond. There may be some that will do 2.8, 2.9 dives, or in this case 2.4 dives for the Malaysians, because that's where they're at in terms of their progression. No point in doing dives that are well above your capabilities. Forward 2.5 somersaults for them. That's quite nice. Very nice, actually. Not a difficult dive by the standards that we'll see from everybody else in the round, but they've gone up from their compulsors at 2. That's all right. I think they'll be relatively happy with that. That's more than mid-range. Good synchronicity off the board. And I've got apart from a slight over rotation going in, I think, on the near side. In fact, they're both slightly over, only marginally, not massively. And that will be a decent mark, 7.5s, maybe up to 8, possibly. Well, some 8s up there, 55.44 for the Malaysians. And there's room for improvement, but that's the best that they've produced so far. On to Australia, and into the 3s we go, with a back 2.5 somersaults for Chin and Mills, 3.0 Chin. Now on the left hand side of your screen. Chin trying to save it as best she could. Sometimes divers have this wonderful ability, even when they're not going in vertically, to just try and pull it around and make it out that they have. I don't think she actually pulled that around. She didn't. Well short in the end. Well short. Which is difficult. And that's going to cost them quite a few points, certainly in terms of synchronicity. Yeah, a little bit short is the answer. A little bit short reflects on the marks as well. 58.50, been caned on the synchro. 4.5s and 5s, they will disappear from the marks though. So Australia, who are right up there, we'll find the Chinese probably easing out in front of them now, off the back of this. This being an inward 2.5 somersaults, 3.0. The Chinese now won't go below that. They'll probably go up to 3.2. Looking like the gold medalist to me at this stage. Just got a little bit more cohesion about them. They do practice hours on end. Distance from the board good. Entries alright. They'll do better, but that's enough. Oh, in fact she was a little bit short on the far side. Let's look again. Yeah, that's going to be marked down a little bit because of that. 63.9 is not quite what you would have expected from a Chinese pair on a 3. So just slightly allow a bit of room for the others to possibly make up some room. Let's see if anybody can get beyond 63.9. Still the best mark in this round so far. 4.2.5 with 1 twist for Reed and Torrance. They are capable of getting mid-60s on this. Not bad. Not the greatest of entries, though, again. And I was a little bit worried when they set off. They weren't quite in time. They got it together as they left from virtually the same place. Legs went. It'll be mid-range marks. Yeah, see there, the bounce was not quite together, and then all of a sudden it is together, and legs slightly going over. About the same height off the board. Now they could get 60s. Yeah, 61.20. It's all right, actually. That's okay. As low marks are discarded, the high marks discarded. So that's better than the Malaysians and certainly the Australians did on the same tariff dive. We're down to 2.4. So there's the wheel I was talking about, which adjusts the tension of the board. Some people like it with a lot of flexibility. Some like it quite strong. 2.4 on this one. Now, long way apart. A cheeky smile there, because it's always pretty obvious when the divers know they haven't quite done what they intended to do. And I think it's because they actually did arrive about, no, they didn't take off in the same place, they didn't land in the same place, they didn't really land at the same time either. Legs going over, whoops. Now, of course, if you're in the individual event and you don't feel comfortable, oh dear, what happened there? She nearly went sideways off the board. If you don't feel comfortable on the end of the board in an individual, you can say stop and we'll go back and restart. You do get penalised for it, but you do get a chance to reset. But when you're with your partner, you can't do that. You've got to go for it. And that was slightly disjointed takeoff, which results in the lowest mark of round 3. Now, I wonder if these two could sneak into the medals. Forward 2.5, somersaults 1 twist for Freitag and Janssen. Very much together. Janssen's legs weren't quite in the right position on entry. Freitag looked to be good enough, but they're going to get penalised for Janssen. It's about the same, but Janssen just didn't quite nail her entry. Bit splash from both of them on entry. 66.6 though. I tell you what, that's taken her up into 3rd place. That's a good row of marks there, worthy of a smile. 66.6 is the best from this round so far of all the divers. Now, can the crowd encourage Abel and Ware? Back 2.5 somersaults, 3.0. Slightly marked down on round 2. But right up there in terms of medals. Jennifer really putting herself through it, arching that back, bringing those legs round. The entry very good. Not looking as supple as a teammate today though. Ooh, it's a real effort to bring those legs round. Let's look at Pam Ware. Yeah, it's okay. Pretty good. Now, that could be the highest mark of this round. Is it? It is. 72.90 for Abel and Ware. And that will mean 1st place for them. The Chinese not quite hitting their straps on their earlier dive. Tight after round 3 here. Subshinsky and Punta, they're back 2.5 somersaults. For the moment they're just shy of the 100-point mark after round 2. Chance to move up a place or two possibly here. Not with that though, sadly. That's not going to help their cause greatly. Enthusiastic response. But that's not going to be the kind of reward they're looking for. Again, reaching in, trying to bring those legs round on entry. So look, reach. Oh, you see, not quite there. The vertical rip is not there. Massive amount of splash from both divers, and that will result in 62.10, which is only enough for 5th after round 3. So at the end of that round, it's Canada, China, Australia, and the Dutch in 4th, but only just behind the Australians, about a point behind the Australians, so very little to choose between them. As we were mentioning, in round 3, going to round 4, Malaysians really with their programme haven't got the big tariff dives to go for, so they don't. Stick in their comfort zone, which also means that they can't get the amount of marks available they'd like. In with 2.5 somersaults, 2.7 for Yi and Cam. Waiting for the referee's whistle. Is there a problem? A little chat with the referee downstairs. Not been introduced yet, that's why they can't go for it yet. They're a bit too keen. Now that it'll be introduced, there's the referee's whistle, and that means they can continue. Yeah, there's still a bit of work to be done on that too, I'm afraid. 55 they got in the last round. I think they'll be lucky to get that on this one. It's not the greatest in the split legs. Heavy entry at quite a acute angle, and no, not much of that really worked for the Malaysian pair. 46.98 is pretty much what it is worth, I'm afraid. Shame, but a lot of these are works in progress, and certainly theirs is. Not so much with these two. More established pair of, although a relatively new pair, of Chin and Mills. Reverse 2.5 somersaults, 3.0. Approach from the board was all over the place. A lot of enthusiastic support, but the approach on the board was not very good, and that entry was not very good. Let's look here on the, it's a straddle step, and then no, legs gone completely as she was poised for the entry. Trying to arch that back and bring those legs round, but not a save on this occasion. And they also landed at slightly different times as well, so that's going to be marked down fairly heavily. 62.10. Those fives, the left hand side of your screen, they will really count against the Australians, which again may just have given the Dutch a little fillip, a little inkling that they can pounce for the top 3 place. Second at the moment, Wu and Q, forward 2.5 with 1 twist. Good. Disappeared. That's the word we use. And they go through like a knife through butter. And that's what they've done there. Best of the bunch so far, the Chinese. That'll get them a good reward. Decent takeoff, good synchro, nice entry, pretty much vertical both as they enter the water, and that will be sizable rewards for them. Slightly one ahead of the other in terms of where they went into the pool, but that's not a massive amount of difference. And 75.6 is the biggest mark we have seen in the competition so far. Not a million miles away from the top 3 are the British pair of Reed and Torrance, but they are down on degree of difficulty here. Reverse 2.5 somersaults, only 2.8. So they've got a little differential to make up, and to do that, it has to be pretty much spot on. That's alright. Reed and Torrance can be pretty happy with that. Still not sure on the approach. They're quite cohesive enough for my liking. Just there. No, they're not. They're not really together, but once they leave the board they are, and once they landed they were. It's Grace a little bit over there. Might just have been on entry, just a fraction over. Counts the judges' eagle eyes to spot. A bit more splash, they're looking back at it. 60.48 though is okay. Third place for the time being. There's still 4 more to go. Don't think these two will trouble the scorers terribly much in terms of pushing for the top 3 place. Fong and Tan, certainly not with 2.7 degree of difficulty on inward 2.5. As I mentioned with the Malaysian pair, all a great learning curve. I love their basic introduction too. It's brilliant. Every synchronized pair has a different system. Some count backwards, some count forwards. They just go ready, go, and off they go. And that will be, I imagine, their best return so far, marks-wise. It could be up around the 50s. It could be, well, actually slightly over 50, I think, on that one. Yeah, that's pretty nice. Entries left a little bit to work on, but that's 50 plus, surely. Oh, much more than 50. 60.75. And just working on the basis of that being a lower tariff dive, but all good. 60.75 for Fong and Tan. Now these two have a real chance to get the Australian mark. If they get 64 here, they will go ahead of the Australians, or the Dutch pair. Yeah, entries scruffy. Shame, because that's probably going to, well, will count against them, will cost them a little bit here. Feet right over the edge of the board as well. That's a little bit scary on a 3 metre board, or any board for that matter, but when you've yeah, I don't like the feet being right over the edge like that, and nor do the judges invariably. 69.3 though is very good. Yeah, looking back quizzically, it's a 4.5 in there. A bit of a rogue mark, which will get discounted, and I make it they are in the medals now. Canada, of course, will have something to say about silver, but based on where they were last round, Holland are up. Canada go 4-3.5. First 3.1 we've seen in the competition from the Canadians. Didn't quite land together, separated out mid-air, but because it's a 3.1, they'll have a little buffer on the scoring here, and they'll have completed that dive a lot better many times, and that's okay. It's one of those where the coaches can't be too annoyed. They'll just be a little bit upset they didn't get more marks out of that. 70.68. That makes it really tight now. Chinese will have, I think, leapt above the Canadians by virtue of that. And we'll get the end of score marks shortly after seeing the Germans, Subshinsky and Punzer. First 2.5 somersaults, 3.0 for the Germans. No. All went wrong from takeoff. They weren't together. They separated out quite badly mid-dive, and by the time they hit the water, they weren't really any kind of coalition. It all happened from here. Now, did they take off in the same place? Well, not quite, and that was an awful landing for both of them, to be honest. Different heights off the takeoff as well. That doesn't help. The more you examine this dive, the less there is to recommend it, to be honest. And they got slightly closer together, but not dangerously so. Marks aren't going to be good for this. 54 for the Germans, and that will put them near the back. So how are we looking at the end of that round? The Chinese in front, Canada in second, only a couple of points behind. Then come the Dutch, and the Australians next up. So not much of a distance between China and Canada. Keep an eye on that gap. It's only 1.5, and there's about 6 points between Holland and Australia at this stage. So they always separate out into two groups here. The two are likely to get the gold, and the two are likely to get the bronze. And then you get the others who are fighting for the minor placings. And here's the Malaysian pair of Yi and Cam. Again, not up in the threes. 2.8, highest tariff dive for them. Back 2.5 somersaults to finish. Yeah, it's a little bit of back to the drawing board for them. Plenty of time. They're young enough to work their way towards, well, Olympics next year. Probably not quite ready for that, but Commonwealth Games next time round in 2018 will be probably ideal time for them. But that's scruffy in pretty much every respect, I'm afraid. 54 is actually their second top mark. But when you're seeing 4 and 5s on the score, it's not ideal. I think it's all a learning process. That's kind of the conversation he's having. So you learn from this. Could have been this class of competition as well. Get used to being around the bigger names, the better competitors, learning from them as well. Right, now the battle for bronze is basically, the way I see it, between the Australians and the Dutch. And they're currently 4th after the last round. Chin and Mills with their last dive. Should be a good one. It's an okay one. It's alright. It's not going to massive plaudits, but it's functional, I think might be a good way to describe it. Approach and attack on the board is alright. Take off just about the same. The entry to the water, how vertical is it? It's okay. All of it was pretty much a box ticking exercise, I think, on that dive. It'll get them decent marks. 68.4 is decent. So, calculations now means it's actually going to be, they've got to be up in the mid-60s, which is going to be a lot to ask. So, the battle for the bronze. Now comes the battle for the gold with China and later Canada. Wu and Q, 3.0 on their back, 2.5 somersaults. Be ranked ahead of Canada, but only by a mark and a half. Well, that's a save. That is a save. The way those legs whipped around to make a vertical entry, it's something the Chinese do so well. Look, closest to us, how those legs come back and get themselves into a position where she goes through the water and doesn't allow an awful lot of splash. Look concerned for a bit, and then suddenly, pulled it around. That may be good enough for gold. 70 marks, 76.5. I think that is going to be good enough for gold. I think they know that too, and they've done their little computations in their head and know that the Canadians need something fairly out of the ordinary to get close to that. Reid and Torrance for Great Britain. So you're back in the twos again. 2.8 for them on a back. 2.5 somersaults. Unfortunately, landing was not impressive. She knows it. That's going to possibly move them down a peg or two. Amazing amount of splash. It's always the dead giveaway if you're trying to cover it up. They both win at jaunty angles, shall we say. A lot more splash on this side than there was on the far side. That's going to be quite low, I'm afraid, mark-wise. Yeah, 54.6. Fong and Tan. Again, in the same ballpark. 2.8, back 2.5 somersaults. Probably get the price of the best costume of the day. I do like that ready go. It doesn't necessarily mean they're better planned for the dive to come. That ready go is there's no steady about it. No steadiness at all as far as that dive was concerned. Just ready go, and off they go. And that was scruffy in the extreme on both sides, to be honest. That's giving it quite a low mark. I'm afraid the judges will see through pretty much every aspect of that. That could be 40s, 45.36. They don't have high tariffs in their dives, and again, pretty much here for experience. Okay, now calculations here. I reckon, if my calculations are right, Dutch need 67 to be sure of a bronze here on this reverse 2.5, 3.0. This would be a really big marker for Dutch diving if they could do it. No, she's way off the board. Goodness me, how does she save that? Well, I wonder how punishing the judges are going to be on her takeoff there. She lost her feet altogether on the take. Look. Not where she should be at all. The rest of the dive was okay, and the entries were fine. But that takeoff had me worried. Oh, no, look, she goes backwards off the board. She's on the end, realises she's too far along the board, and has to step back. Ooh, heart and mouth job that was. I think that might have cost them the medal. Oh, they've got it! Oh, they've snuck it. Well done, Freitag and Janssen. Goodness gracious me. They've got a medal of some description. Real heart in the mouth job there. So Bell and Ware, 4 2.5, 1 twist. This should be for the silver. And silver it will be for the Canadians. I don't think they're going to catch the Chinese on that. They will need 78 off that dive. Remember, hometown crowd. Judges might be influenced a little bit by the hometown fans. 78 needed. I think it's going to be a little bit shy of that. Oh, I don't know, the crowd are getting very excited, so maybe they've snuck it. 78 they need. 78 they need, I make it, for gold to overtake the Chinese. Have they got it? It's going to be close. It's going to be tight. Chinese wait for the marks. Canada wait for the marks. Is it 78? It's 76.5. They haven't quite done it. Just falling shy, and I think we'll see probably a mark and no more than that when we get the final scores. I reckon there's about a mark between Canada and China in the end. Well, probably a bit more because China had a mark and a half on top of them. They've got exactly the same mark in that round, so it's going to finish at about 1.5. So the German pair will complete their program. Not in range of medals, but again, nice solid finish would be good from their point of view. It's a little bit scruffy, a little bit uncoordinated midway through. A great deal of reception from the crowd, and they will find themselves probably on the second page. Yeah, not in any way together after they left the board. They were doing two different dives there for a moment. Let's have a look, what happens here? Yeah, the twist comes at the wrong time. And 62.10 is their final mark, which equals their best. So, it is China, Canada, and the Dutch. What a great weekend this has been for the Dutch. Second medal for them. And so in the end, I think it was a mark and a half, no more than that between first and second. We'll get that confirmed in just a moment. But it's another gold for the Chinese. And 3:21.6 plays 3:20.28. And look at that. Freitag and Janssen in third place. And that's a second bronze medal for Freitag this weekend. Australians edged into fourth. Touch timing is definitely coming to the fore. And it's always good to see countries who haven't hitherto had much of a reputation for diving coming through. China then winning it in the end by 1.38 over Canada, with Holland, the Dutch or the Netherlands, describe it however you will, in third place. Good 3-minute synchro that turned out to be. A lot of twists, a lot of turns, and the twist not always in the right position. In terms of the outcome, that's China and Canada, who get 1 and 2, with the Netherlands in 3, and we love you as well. Okay, to come. 2 more finals. We normally go by our timing sheet here, but